Hi everyone, welcome to the Car Chat podcast. And with me today, I am at Theon Design with Adam Hawley.
Hello,
Adam.
Sam. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, it's been good. We first met on Saturday, actually.
Saturday morning, a ridiculous time in London, the centre of London.
Yeah, we these guys got me down to do some photos, and we decided we were going to do it up here in Oxfordshire. But you decided to do it in London.
Yeah, some more iconic pictures and more, the background is just, and it worked really well. The photographs really well. You did.
But we had a very, very early start. I think you left at 3 a.m. or something.
Yeah, we left Oxfordshire at 3 a.m, so that's, yeah.
But yeah, the photos, I'm pretty happy with the photos. They're quite cool.
I think there's some brilliant ones in there.
Only got stopped by the police once.
Yeah, that's I suppose it's to be expected if you're hanging.
It was worth it though.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they're great pictures.
Yeah. So if any photographers out there, just do it first. Don't try not to do anything illegal, but just say sorry afterwards rather than before. And it'll all turn out good if you plan it well.
That's probably not the best advice to give to people, but there you go.
No, like within reason. But in photography, if you're like, I don't know whether I should park my car there. If you're not harming
anybody, then it's...
Exactly. Just park it there and take a picture. You're not robbing anyone or anything.
No, exactly.
Okay. This podcast is about you. Okay. How did we get to here? What's been your journey to date? Have you always built cars, or what started first?
So I started out doing car design, basically. I went to university, did car design at university, and then basically worked around Europe, working for lots of different companies, in lots of different studios, basically honing my trade, I guess.
What sort of things were you working on? Are you allowed to talk about these things?
Yeah. I mean, all of this stuff is some time ago now, but I was very lucky to start my career with concept cars, which is a brilliant way to learn design because you're a lot freer in what you can do. So yeah, and then went through to more production stuff. So learned that end of it too, which then obviously we can bring into the business here. And so that's the way we kind of, our USP, I guess, is that we bring all that knowledge into what we do here every day.
Yeah. And as someone that's interested in design and stuff like that, do you a really like details oriented person?
Yeah, completely. Just kind of obsessed with making sure, as we discussed downstairs, there's so many elements to the cars that we do that nobody will probably ever see, but it's about knowing they're right. All the way through the core of the car. Yeah,
outside the workshop where we are now, you've got lined up a sort of an original 964, and then essentially the cars through the stages we've got a customer car that's just been finished, and then there's some cars that are in the middle.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And it was really interesting walking around the car and then sort of asking you about various things, and you'd be like, oh yeah, and then we did like, okay.
This is the thing, because obviously there's so many details that, I forget so many of the things we do because it's just my day-to-day job, basically. We just do that, and you just kind of assume it's normal. Well, it is normal here to be this kind of, attention to detail is just absolutely majorly important. And all the guys that work here are just obsessed, like I am, with anything that's not right. And yeah.
Getting it there. And then how many hours go into a car?
So we were talking about this the other day. We think it's probably somewhere between sort of 5,000 to 6,000 hours per car to get them to a finished car, which...
That is a lot of hours.
Yeah. It's a ridiculous amount of work, but it kind of, I hope you can see that in the cars. I mean, well, you've just driven a Donor 964 car back to back with one of our recreations, and there's a small difference. I think you'll agree.
Yeah, that was really cool actually, because they have a normal 964 just parked up that's about to be someone's build. I took it for a little spin around the farm that we're on now, and then got into the recreation, and we went for a drive. And yeah, it's a significant difference, I would say, between the two.
It's chalk and cheese, isn't it? It really is. You wouldn't realise it's the same car underneath, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, like it is still a Porsche.
Exactly. It still kind of drives like a Porsche, but just in a very different way.
Yeah. And when you look at, even if you looked at a very clean 964, like sort of mint condition, maybe like just restored, and then you compare it to your car just looks like, just looks way nicer.
Thank you.
You don't, I'm used to seeing cars that have been worked on and played with and all this sort of stuff. But until you see them side by side,
yeah,
or, you know, against other cars parked up or whatever, you can't necessarily go, oh, what makes this one look right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing that I look at the car and go like, that stands out as something that makes it look better or whatever. But just the overall package
definitely
looks really cool.
We've tried to make the car subtly aggressive, but nothing stands out in the way of, nothing is offensive. And even though we're 10 millimeters wider per side than a 964 turbo, it doesn't look hugely wide. Everything is refined into the arch, is sculpted so it actually just works with the car and it looks like it's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
That's what we've kind of tried to do. Everything should look like it's supposed to be there. We've tried to continue with the Porsche ethos, with making everything like a Porsche and like the original 964 Porsche, which is a great donor car to start with, but just improve in every single area, and just all those little increments add up to a significantly better car, as you say. Yeah,
like when you get in the car, straight away you're just like, well, this is a lot nicer. Like this just feels like a much nicer place to be. It's much more, it's like better thought out, designed, just finished to a much, much, much higher standard. Yeah, it's a cool thing. What made you choose a 964? What made you choose to recreate Porsches? So
basically, I mean, even from a small child, I had it's up there, in fact, on my desk, a 930 turbo Matchbox toy. So I've always loved Porsches, even from a very early age. We did the prototype a few years ago, which we outsourced a lot of the work on that. And that was actually on an earlier car, an 80s car. And whilst that was a great car in its own right, there were lots of things we learned from it, and there was lots of issues with that. But that's the great thing about prototypes. You know, as long as you're learning something from it, it's a valuable thing to do. And we basically wanted to go for the 964 rather than the earlier cars, just because the base is a lot more advanced suspension-wise and geometry-wise than the earlier cars. I mean, it's a heavier car to start with, but with all the little bits we do to the car, we can take away a lot of the weight that's been added.
Yeah. No, comparing it to my backdate, it feels significantly more modern. I would say, like, you know you're a good 10 years ahead or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, all the sound deadening is massively improved on the standard car than the earlier sort of 80s cars. So you get that slightly more refined cabin just to start with. And we wanted that more refinement. We didn't want it to be just basically a 70s car with a bigger engine, because that's not kind of what it's about. It's about making it a usable classic. So if you wanted to, you could use it as your daily driver, you know, and
totally.
to do that, I think you've got to have some level of comfort.
Yeah.
You know, and working air conditioning and, you know, a power steering system that's, you know, that works, but isn't overly, you know, assisted. So you feel like you have no feeling through the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And all those things we incorporate into the car. And it's also about moving weight, because, for instance, the air conditioning in the standard 964 and the power steering is all on top of the engine. So you've got all that weight at the back of the car and high up. So we move that all to the front of the car and actually put it between the front wheels, close to between the front wheels as we can, and as low as we can. So you're lowering the center of gravity, making it more 50-50. I mean, obviously you're not going to get it 100% 50-50, although we do have corner weighted across the car as 50-50 in the geometry setup. But yeah, to get it as handling as good as humanly possible.
Yeah, and it's, as a driving experience, I think it's probably a really interesting point to come into for someone who's just only driven modern cars.
Yeah.
Because if you drive something 70s, it just seems, or before, it just seems like archaic.
Yes.
So old. Whereas actually the 964 doesn't. It has a lot of the elements you can see that from the older cars.
Yeah.
Whether it's like the steering's like just slightly angled or whatever, or all these sort of kind of classic-y type things.
Yeah.
But it feels way more sort of like solid and together as a platform.
Yes, definitely. The the platform is definitely miles on, even though predominantly the chassis, I mean, it was strengthened and they had a lot of weight doing that. But I mean, as we talked downstairs, the roof is pretty much exactly the same as it was back to the sort of late 60s. So, the cars haven't changed that much, but yeah, it was improved massively for the 964.
Yeah, and the sort of like daily ability for someone that doesn't necessarily want to
want it to be hard work.
Like it starts on the key.
Yeah,
it's got ABS. It's got whatever it's called, power steering, and you still have feeling through it. It's just when you're trying to drive around a car park, it's not like
you're not having to fight the car.
Yeah, especially on like the older cars. If someone's done a build, generally they've put bigger wheels, bigger tires on it, which be even more force through that steering wheel.
You got to fight it.
Whereas this, you can totally just like cruise down the road one hand, like not too stressful.
Exactly, but it's also not, as you say, not so assisted that you don't have any feeling. So it's such a fine line. It's we wanted to keep it reasonably solid. So it's not a modern system in the sense of for instance, in your Audi, whereby at slow speed, it's obviously you turn it with one finger, and then it relaxes as it goes more powerful. It's still a classic car at the end of the day. You want it to be assisted all the way through the range, but just not so much you lose all feeling and any ability.
I think after this we should do a little video of walking around the car, and I'm just going to point at stuff and be like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Because I think it's really good for the listeners and the people that are watching to see all this stuff, because I know we've just said a lot of work goes into it, and you hear a lot of work goes into it, but you don't necessarily have an idea of all of the little bits. And we did a walk around of the car earlier, really, and seeing one in a shell form, little stuff where you're like, oh, just look at like all of these welds, and then.
Yeah, and like for around the engine bay, there's on the standard 964, it's just not finished at all, and it's just horrible welds, and we just tidy all that up just because why wouldn't you? The whole attention to detail thing, that kind of stuff that I just see, and it just annoys me. And if it annoys me, then it'll annoy a customer.
Yeah, or hopefully it annoys you. You sort out all the things that annoy you, and no one else will ever notice. But they're like, but it seems good.
Yeah,
and you're like,
exactly.
Yes, and it's like not going to rust weirdly or whatever. Like because I've sorted all of this stuff.
Exactly.
What's been some of the biggest struggles with creating a project like this?
It's all very hard work. It's the honest answer.
Yeah,
it's amazing how when you're trying to design something new, nothing ever works first time. So we spend a lot of time on research and development, trying to get things to work. Do a design, sketch design, 3D model it, prototypes, and getting that to work is never easy. But obviously, once we've worked with the guys downstairs and got things to work and also look great, it's obviously a massively rewarding project.
Because we're sitting here now and I can see your desk, and I just walked in and you had one of the photos of the interior from the other day, but you changed the seats, and I was like, hang on, this was my photo, but the interior is a different color.
It's not anymore.
And stuff's like completely changed, and I can see like how you're really good at doing all that sort of stuff. Have you found using 3D modeling and stuff like that has completely, well, I guess you've used that all the time, so you haven't like done it before that. But does that massively help the process of?
Oh, definitely, because you can make sure, because obviously the cars, the cars are completely 3D scanned, so we can make sure the fit and finish is perfect. When for instance, the steel bodies when they're built up, we can make sure that every point in the arch and everything is in the correct place, so that when we put the bumpers on, everything lines up. All the lines are run through the car. That's the thing with working in the car industry previously. It's all about engineering things to make them work properly. Yeah. And using the 3D data you have to create those tolerances.
Because sitting behind us, we've got a bumper.
We do have a bumper. It's a front bumper.
Front bumper made of carbon fiber. And like, what's the process of like designing and making this part?
So sketch first, 3D model. Normally get some kind of prototype made just to check all the proportions.
And do you make that out of like wood or?
I think if I remember, these were 3D printed, but full size. And then you obviously make all your refinements, do more 3D prints to check areas, and then basically cutting molds. So then the carbon fiber can be made from the molds that you've cut from 3D data, so you know everything will be absolutely spot on.
And is that a lot easier to do nowadays than 10 years ago?
Probably not so much 10 years ago, but obviously it's easier to get things machined.
Yeah.
There's a lot more companies out there that will machine and will understand the process of the whole 3D modeling. I mean, the great thing for us is obviously because everything is 3D modeled rather than handmade, you know that point there is exactly the same as that point over there. Everything is perfectly symmetrical. You know, that's the big thing with a lot of things. You realize, as I say, if something's handmade, it might look symmetrical, but when you 3D scan it, you see very much it's not.
Yeah, or the surfaces are not quite line up and stuff like that. I remember you showed me on the boot of the car, on the boot lid, there's a little grill.
Yes, little aluminium slats.
But like, if you look at most cars, it's like they're
all just bars,
straight bars that go on.
Yeah.
Whereas yours, you're like, well, what I did on the computer is that you basically connected the curves of the car.
So basically the whole spoiler was made as a solid object, and then obviously you have the cutout for the air to go into the engine bay. And then, so all the bars are cut out of that surface. So all the lines flow through perfectly, which, as I say, probably nobody will ever notice, but I know it's there.
And it's one of those things when you look at the back of the car or whatever, you go, that looks nice. You know, as just a random person, you're like, that looks nice.
Yeah.
You don't know why. And then if you showed me one that it hadn't been done, you'd be like, oh, it doesn't look quite as nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all those little details. And, you know, it's like, for instance, we were talking earlier about the carbon fiber as well, you know, that no one will ever see it, but all the herringbone runs through every single item of the car. You know, all the interior parts that are leather trimmed, all the 45-degree angles run through everything perfectly. And it's about, you know, knowing that it's there. And, you know, obviously any customers that come to see us, they can see that. And they'll probably never see it in their own car, but they can see it, you know, of a car before it's trimmed, you know, as a complete carbon interior. And obviously if people want it, we can leave it bare carbon, aesthetic carbon. But
it's quite cool.
It's not about, exactly. It's not necessarily about using carbon fiber for the sake of using carbon fiber. It's about using the right materials that do the job correctly, that are lightweight, reliable, stable. You know, all these things matter more than the fact that it's a nice material and it looks pretty.
Or is that considered the cool material at the moment?
Exactly.
If nowadays, so your bumper's a carbon fiber. Yeah. If someone drives into your bumper, is that a massive nightmare to get fixed?
It's probably a new bumper, to be honest with you.
Can you repair carbon?
You can repair carbon fiber. Well, it obviously depends how hard the shunt is, I guess. But I mean, obviously it's a bolt-on part, so it's the same as any other car, I guess. Yeah. If it's a hard enough crash that you've split the bumper into, you just replace the bumper.
Yeah. It's a pretty tough material to start with. So if you've cracked it, you've probably
hit a reasonable speed.
A reasonable thing. Would you say this is your perfect 911?
As with all things, you always want to improve it.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm extremely happy with the car we've just built. I think it's phenomenal. It's a great car. But as a company, we won't just sit still on that. We will continue to develop things and improve, because if you're just sitting still, then what's the point?
Exactly.
You know, if you like design, you always want to improve things.
Yeah. And your car, this car is it's for a different person than the previous car, funnily enough.
Yes.
Well done, Sam. But your customers want different things.
Oh, completely. And that's the great thing, because they are basically bespoke built cars. Like, for instance, the previous car, he wanted a much more outlandish kind of car, and the color was a lot brighter, and, you know, orange Porsche script on the side. Whereas this guy has gone for a lot more sort of touring, subtle car. So, you know, the slate grey exterior and, you know, the mulberry red interior with the black. It's a nice, with no decals on no script on the side as well.
It's a really like understated,
completely
but cool,
understated
car.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think most people would look at it and be like, "Oh, that's a nice Porsche."
Yeah.
They wouldn't go, "Oh, that's a blah 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 blah."
No,
that's the thing. That's the point, isn't it?
Exactly,
really?
It is. It's kind of, it's easy, individual taste, isn't it? If somebody wants a car that absolutely shouts out what it is, that's fine. That's great. We're all different people at the end of the day.
And in terms of sort of performance, like options on the car, like how you could spec, if I was coming to you tomorrow and saying, I want to buy a car, well, first of all, how long does it take?
So the builds take a year or just over, depending on sort of spec level.
Yeah.
And so you can basically have anything from just a 3.6 completely rebuilt with...
What does the car have?
So it's a 3.6. A 964 has a 3.6 as standard. So we can rebuild that completely and add the individual throttle bodies and all the bits we do to make our cars look like the way they do. So that'll add significant brake horsepower over the standard car.
What's the standard? And then
so the standard is just under 250. So we're going up to sort of 300-ish for the 3.6 and then sort of 350 for a 3.8 or like about 400 for a 4 litre.
Because that car is a 3.8.
It's a 3.8, and that car, I mean, the specs we give for brake horsepower, every engine is different.
Yeah.
And that one, even though it's a 3.8, is actually developing 370 horsepower.
Oh, okay. And it feels like, how much does what does the car weigh stock? How much does your car weigh?
So the car weighs just under 1,400 stock.
Yeah.
No, sorry, 1,450 stock. And we got that down to 1,225, all fluids, all wet.
Yeah. That's a serious amount of stuff out of the car.
Yeah. So that accompanied with a third more torque as well.
Yeah.
The car performs in a completely
and
invigorated way.
Yeah, and from a performance car point of view, it feels like it feels quick. It doesn't feel like crazy modern, 720S, obviously.
Yeah.
But it feels like very quick and quicker than most stuff you're going to come across.
It's certainly quick enough for a daily driver.
Yeah, definitely. And it really, the 3.8 in that really, like when you get up the rev range, really sort of like screams.
It's a lovely raucous, growly kind of roar.
Yeah, it's quite an angry engine, which is quite fun.
It's quite addictive, the sound, isn't it?
Yeah, you just keep booting your foot down. And are there a few different exhaust options or?
Yeah, so I mean, all the exhaust is custom made for us, all with equal length headers and everything to help with the power.
Yeah.
So we can put switchable exhausts on there as well. So you can have it noisy and quiet.
It's quite a good idea.
Yeah. Well, so when you're in a muse at 4:30 in the morning on a Saturday, you don't have to wake everybody up.
We'd been up for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours or something. And we're standing in this muse and we're suddenly like, hang on a minute, it's like 7:30.
Yeah, on a Saturday morning.
Saturday, we should probably be quiet.
Yeah, so thing is, everything is customizable.
Yeah.
We have obviously a menu of choices, but the reality is, if somebody wants something completely different, then we're more than happy to discuss that with them.
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, because you're doing it all. People can have whatever they want.
Yeah.
If someone came to you with like a really outlandish color, whatever, like, something that's possibly vomit inducing, would you try and dissuade them or
definitely
just go for it?
No, I'd try and dissuade them. We have had people come to us in the past wanting to put huge spoilers and intakes and things like on the cars.
RWB type thing.
Not so much RWB, but just, like the 959 sort of intake in the rear arch and a huge sort of GT2 kind of style spoiler on the back. And we kind of discussed it with them and, as you say, try and dissuade people away from going too outlandish.
Yeah, because it's not... What number car is this? 2?
This is 2, of the recreations,
Yeah, so I guess that's sort of, what you want to create. And if number 3 was some crazy mad thing, people were like, okay, well, what do you guys make? I don't know. Gearbox felt very good, very nice. Is that just a standard G50? So
it's a standard box. So that was originally a C4. We converted it to a C2. And that's actually an off-the-shelf part we bought from Porsche. So it's a genuine Porsche built new gearbox for that car. It's a 5-speed rather than we also offer the 6. So yeah, it's the only thing it's got is sort of an RS short shifter. So you have a bit more of a positive feel, which I know you noticed.
Yeah, it's very positive. Like just like, whereas like an earlier, whatever is it, 901.
Yeah, 901, you've got to hunt for the gear. Yeah. It's kind of like over there, then over there, isn't it?
That in itself is a shift between an older car and a newer car. Like it's just such, because it's one of the things that you interact with all of the time. It's just like, oh no, we're in a different feel. That in itself just feels like a modern gear shift.
Yeah,
as opposed to a van of the older cars. When you're pootling around, just going.
Definitely.
What are some of your favourite design elements of the car?
Oh, good question.
An interesting one that I thought about is the wing mirror.
Yes.
The wing mirror on this current car. Can you try and explain to someone listening how it works and how it functions?
So we basically got inspiration from the latest Porsche Speedster concept. And that was a manual mirror. We wanted to do something like that, but make it electric. And so we basically decided to make the front section of the aluminium, effectively like a cone shape, move with the motor, which is quite a feat of engineering. So that caused us a lot of headaches, but we managed to get that to work, and it all works perfectly. And we're really, really pleased with actually the way it looks.
It looks very cool.
It's it's a stunning little bit of detail.
It's a nice detail when you look at it and then you explain it and you're like, oh wow, okay, this was actually quite a lot of work in a wing mirror, but like it works and it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I mean, I like the way the whole car kind of just all works together. It's not like it looks like we've stuck bits on a car. I think that's probably my favorite element. The fact that it all just works together and all just gels.
Yeah. So when someone looks at it and they just go, looks nice. You're like, yes.
Well, exactly. Because it's kind of like what you said, you know, if you didn't have a 964 next to it, you would just kind of assume it was all there already.
Yeah.
And that kind of means I've won, because that kind of means I've got everything to look right and in place.
Yeah.
Even though every single element on that car, there's not a single thing that doesn't change on it. But because we've kind of stuck to the Porsche ethos and tried to do it in a Porsche way, it all just kind of fits.
So what do you think a Porsche way of doing things is?
Well, I think because we also have done restoration work. You learn a lot from rebuilding cars back to sort of basically concourse kind of condition.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about a company's heritage and a car's heritage and the way things were done back then. And obviously they were taken through to the 964, but obviously some things slipped away and we've brought some of those things back. And I think even silly things like the tyre sizes are kept to the same percentage, ratio to the original car tyres. They're the same diameter, so the same rolling diameter as the standard 964 tyres, but the front and rear have been increased at the same percentage from the original wheels, just so you don't lose the whole characteristics of a 964. You still want it to drive like a Porsche. It's a great car to begin with. And all we're doing is just incrementally improving every area of the car.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one thing. Like you see on a lot of builds, they go a bit big on wheels in terms of like rim diameter.
And so you're losing the drive, the characteristics of the car.
A little bit of like give in the tires or roll, and actually just nowadays that comfort that you get with some sidewalk squidge. Yeah. But yeah, when you look at the car from the side, it's got a decent amount of tire on it.
Yeah.
That you still go, it's like
it just looks classic
car rather than someone's put some big rims.
Yeah, with rubber band tires.
With rubber band tires on it. Yeah.
Which just make it all bang and crash and just, don't really do anything for the ride or handling.
So why didn't you go for a centre exhaust? Only because that seems like a popular thing at the moment.
It does, but it's not really a Porsche thing. The turbos have always had quad exhausts, so it's always kind of, keeping to that. The special models, it's all about using all the technology and the design language of the RS models and the turbos and looking at the heritage for design, you know, and then putting a modern twist on it, a contemporary twist on it, but then looking forwards as well at the you know, the cars that came after the 964, you know, to see the improvements that were made. For instance, you know, we used the 993 master cylinder on it because it's more powerful than the 964 one, and 1,000 other things that just incorporating that technology and those advancements into the cars, but still keeping the Porsche.
Yeah, when you look at the back, I think one of the things I really like the design of like it's sort of the diffuser / bumper.
Yeah,
like it looks more modern, but then you step 30 foot back, and you kind of don't really notice it.
Yeah,
like as in, you know, it's there, but it's not. Yeah,
exactly. It's all those little modern contemporary twists that we like, you know, that we've added to the car just to make it ours, basically.
What gets you going car wise? Like what cars? What is like you really into? Oh, obviously other than 964s and your build of 964s.
Do you know what? I've just always loved Porsches. Yeah. I love the fact that I think the thing that Porsche have got right is the fact that you can just use their cars.
Yeah.
It's not like a classic Ferrari, no offense with your F40, but it's not
taken.
It's not a car you could drive regularly.
Not a Porsche.
It's a great car, but it's not a car you could drive regularly without
setting on fire. It's well documented.
So that's what I like about it. They're usable.
Yeah.
And I'm quite a practical person, so that kind of stuff matters to me. You know, I don't want to get out of a car and turn around and think, oh God, I've got to drive back in that.
Yeah.
You know, I want to look back at the car and like, I can't wait to get back in that to drive home.
And that's the best thing about having cars, I think, for me, is you've got to be using them and you've got to want to use them. And if it's like, it only works very well, if you've got a bunch of cars, then you can have a car that only works well in a certain situation. But for most people, if you've got one fun car, I want to go on a road trip in that. And it will take the luggage that you need to take.
It won't break my back.
It won't break my back. It's got comfy seats and it just goes and it starts every time and it's unlikely to break down and all of those sorts of things matter so much. And I think it probably annoys a lot of people about how car magazines and everyone just rants about how great Porsche is. And Porsches always get scored really highly. And it's all of these reasons that you go and do some road trips and you go and do it in a lot of modern cars are pretty good now, but you know, a modern Ferrari or a McLaren or whatever, chances are something may go wrong and you may not have that much space in it. Okay, having rear seats, they're not that usable in terms of like an adult sitting them.
No.
But you can put stuff there.
Yeah. I mean, they're great bag carriers.
Yeah. And if you've got a smallish person in the passenger seat, you can have someone behind them for a short distance or whatever. Whereas not having that option, we have loads of these modern hypercar type things at the moment, whether it's just ones that I'm thinking of like Ford GT or like your Senna or your LAF or the new SF9, all of these new crazy cars, they have a boot that's about the size of this water bottle. And they'll say, oh yeah, you can put a helmet in it. You're like, okay.
And then nothing else.
Cool. That's it. Like, how am I meant to take this on a road trip? Ideally with a passenger, because it's quite nice having a passenger. You just can't use them. No.
Well, I mean, as you say, everything has its place. And, you know, but I think the Porsche has that advantage of being a more rounded car. Yeah. I mean, as you say, there are times when a LaFerrari would be great for a Blatt and, you know.
Oh, yeah. Unreal V12, blah, blah.
Exactly. But so I think everything has its place. And I know that's probably a bit of a cop-out on my part, but...
Yeah, totally. I think it does. And I think we're at a point now where a lot of people have had a lot of and still do have the really flash, crazy cars, but they're also like, I quite like being slightly under the radar, but they want something that's a bit tailored and nice.
Yeah.
That still seems under the radar. So most people go, that's a Porsche or something.
Yeah.
And the people that know go like, oh, okay, there's a lot going on here. But you can just pool around in it. You could drive it every day or park it up and you're not going to worry that someone's going to come and key it.
Yeah.
because it's got X badge and is a bright color or something.
I mean, I guess there's that thing of also though, I mean, the good thing about sort of our cars is that, I mean, the car downstairs is a slate grey car and it's very subtle. And as you say, I don't think many people, unless they're car nuts, would actually notice that it's anything particularly different because it's so subtle. But when you put a brighter colour on that, I think it's amazing how when you drove around in the first car that was a much brighter colour, literally everybody just stared at you.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's colour makes a massive difference. I'd love to
see one in like a classic light Porsche colour. I think it would look cool.
There's an interesting colour coming up, but in the next few cars. So we'll
see one at some point.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Where do your customers come from? Do you have like a typical customer or like massive variety?
Do you know what
too many so
we've been unbelievably lucky. All of the customers that we've had have all been absolutely lovely people. That just we work together to create, their perfect Porsche, basically a perfect classic Porsche, and it's obviously much easier if you get on with somebody to work with them. So as I say, we've been so lucky that all the guys that we've dealt with so far have just been lovely. Yeah. And so.
And I imagine it takes, I don't know, but like a certain type of person wants to buy your car. Like it's not the super crazy, flashy, wants to drive around Knightsbridge in a Lamborghini guy. It's probably not that person.
No.
And it's probably someone that likes the attention to detail, or at least someone to have done the attention to detail. And
I think most of our buyers have a collection of cars and they want to add something that's a bit different, but still has that, as you say, can go on a road trip in it, and they know it's going to get them to the other end and home again.
Yeah.
And as you say, the attention to detail is there, and it's just something a bit special. I mean, somebody described in a magazine article at the beginning of the year as our cars as jewel-like, because I mean, underneath the car is just as gorgeous as the top. Everything is absolutely perfect, and all the bolts. It's another one of those things that attention to detail, obsessiveness, whatever you want to call it.
And you definitely massively benefit, I think, when you're looking at these cars. And obviously they're expensive, but like when you start looking at a shell and then you see a before.
Yeah.
And then after, or, another shell that's been slightly done or whatever. And you just look at all of these things, and I wouldn't necessarily notice.
No.
But
and it's bizarrely, it's not even about you noticing it. It's about us knowing that it's perfect. And if you haven't noticed, it's actually probably a good thing, because it means we've resolved it so well that you haven't noticed
that it doesn't stand out.
Exactly.
You don't go, what's that?
Yeah.
Why is there a dent?
Why have you done that there?
Why is there filler in that? In terms of the flat six engines, what I know they're sort of annoyingly expensive to create power from.
Everything is expensive on a Porsche.
Yeah, and the more you try and take it to that next level, the price just starts to go up and up and up.
Yeah.
In terms of the specs on and sort of horsepower figures on an engine, at what point does it start going straight up?
What the cost to do it?
It costs to sort of get the performance. Like if you wanted to get, what's the difference between 300 horsepower and 400 horsepower?
I think it's not just about horsepower though, because you can very easily make these cars 500 horsepower. Well, not very easily, but you can. But you can by putting race cams and all the other sort of things in it. But the reality is it then doesn't become drivable.
Yeah.
And we're not building race cars. We build cars that are fast road cars, but it's got to be drivable. If it's a pain in the ass to drive, excuse my language, if it's a pain in the ass to drive, you're not going to want to drive it. And then what's the point?
Yeah. So
although we're getting good figures for our cars, for the engines, it's not by taking away drivability. So that's really, really important to us.
Yeah, making a nice drivable power band. And
and I mean, for instance, the car downstairs that you drove earlier, I mean, there's a third more torque than new, than when it was a standard 964. So it's just, you can drive it lazily if you want. You don't have to change gear all the time if you don't want to. But the kind of problem is you want to change gear because it just makes such a great sound.
Yeah. You're not just clicking paddles. You're like, oh no, this is quite fun to use my left hand and foot.
Yeah.
Oh, because you see people going like, oh, I know with my GT3 RS, I considered making it more horsepower.
Yeah.
And then you look at some of the work that has to go into, and then the potential like nuking of an engine that could happen sometime down the line of doing whatever, 4.1 litres rather than 3.8 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just go, no, I'm good. I'll just get some more driving lessons if I want to.
But this thing, I mean, most modern cars like that, you know, you won't get most of the potential out of that car unless you're on a track.
Yeah.
It's about putting enough power into the cars so you can feel they've got power and you can drive it hard, but you know, you don't need to be Ayrton Senna to drive it.
Yeah.
At, you know, ridiculous speeds.
And yeah, the drivability side of it. I think the reason I wanted more, what I would have changed in my car is more torque.
Yeah.
Low down. Because if you're on a twisty Alpine road or something, you're always like down at either the bottom of second or at the very top of first.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to have a bit more punch. And I know they've done a lot with the modern GT3s and stuff. The biggest change on the current one is torque low down. Yeah. It's made a huge difference. But yeah, definitely noticed like driving your car, like you said, there's a lot of torque.
Yeah.
Down low that just makes it, like you said, drivable.
Yeah,
it's not like something that you'd necessarily, it's not a figure you would write down on a bit of paper, but when you drive it, it just like it works.
It's all the little bits, isn't it, that add up to something special.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's about. You know, it's, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel, but we're improving on it.
Yeah. You're curating and designing
something special.
Something that's, and it definitely does take all of the little bits, all of the bit here, the bit there, everything to come together to when you look at it and you just stand either driving it or looking at it and you go, it just looks right and it looks great, rather than you see some builds and you're like, it's nearly there, but it's not there. And the difference between nearly there and there seems to be quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange. I mean, that's the thing with everybody has an eye, don't they, for seeing something, as you say, that there's something not quite right and I can't work out why. And it's very easy to spot mistakes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope we've spent the time to make sure we've ironed out as many as we can. Obviously, when you're starting with an existing chassis and an existing car, you can only do so much. I mean, it would be nice to move the wheels a bit further out into the corners, so the handling improved more. But the reality is that's completely redeveloping a chassis, and that's completely So you can only do so much within the parameters that we have. But I think within those parameters, we've produced something.
Yeah, and it's very easy, like you said. If you wanted it to be like a bit wider or whatever, you could put on really big rear wheels and just like make the arches massive or whatever.
Yeah,
but you are losing so much.
You're losing the style and the
experience as well.
And that's what it's about. It's about, I mean, classic Porsches have a style and finesse that is just, I mean, stunning. You know, you look at even just a little 911S, you know, from the early 70s, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it sounds gorgeous. And that's what we're kind of re-invoking, but a more modern twist on it and a more usable, drivable.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, power has increased massively from the 70s. You know, you drive a supposed sports car from the 70s, it's got 100 horsepower, maybe 150 horsepower.
Hot hatch is like 450 or something.
Yeah, a new Nissan Micra will blow it out the water. Yeah. You know, so it's about building on what was already there for us.
Yeah, and I think people like classic cars. A lot of people don't necessarily want to drive actually a classic car. Like I'm not there in my like life, whatever position where I really want to drive like something that's just by all definition a bit crap. Like, yeah, okay, you know, they're not crap, but like compared to a modern car, if you're sort of used to it. But I like with my back.
It's hard work.
It's hard work
driving a proper.
And like, they wallow all over the place and they don't slow down very well, and then like just things need doing.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that love classic cars and would just like that bit
more refined.
I did a podcast with this guy called Niels van Rooij who does sort of coach building type stuff, and he had this phrase that I thought was really good when we were talking about people that have gone too far or just right. and he called it OEM Plus. So it's like, it looks like it could have come from the manufacturer, but it's just a bit more.
Yeah.
And that I think is a very good way of doing it when it's been done right.
Yes, exactly. You get a lot of modern car body kit people that just go that just a bit too far. And
not that bit too far.
Okay, yeah, no, a lot too far. And just completely ruin a design. You kind of, when you see something like that, and obviously having the experience of working in the industry, it kind of feels heartbreaking that somebody spent a lot of time to get lines to all line up and everything to flow through. And then somebody comes along, sticks a massive bumper, huge intakes all over it. And it's like, that just doesn't work. Just look at what you're doing.
You know what's the best one? The best one is a roof scoop on a car that is probably, what have I seen it on? Front engined. I think I saw it on a 599 and it had some crazy, maybe Mansory kit, and it had a roof scoop, and the roof scoop didn't go anywhere.
No.
It's like literally just stuck on the roof and it's closed off at the back. So you're like, well, presumably there's a speed where that's just going to rip off.
Well, and it's just causing drag. So it's actually going to slow you down. It's like a Citroen Saxo, isn't it? With a huge tail on the back. It's actually going to be slowing you down. It's not actually helping at all.
And a roof scoop's like a parachute. It's not.
Completely.
No, it's amazing. I love that these things exist because it's just amusing.
Yeah.
I'll show you a picture after this of this Cadillac I saw the other day. It's amazing. It's got a massive spoiler on it. And you're just like, I mean, that's hilarious. And it's sort of brightened up my day. And I'd quite like to sort of see/meet the person who's that's their decision. Why. But it's not something I'm going to be buying. Thank you very much. And I think like looking at, what you guys do, and there's lots of options out there for, you can have a stock 964, you can have a lightly modified, or you can go really deep into it and end up with something like yours.
Yeah.
And if you are out there and you're looking for a 964 experience, you can go and buy a 964. If you want a 964 that's been modified a bit, you can go do that. And then if you want to go all out and do the full thing, you can do that. But there are options for everyone.
Yeah, also, and everybody is different. Everybody is an individual. Everybody has different tastes, and each to their own.
Yeah. If someone said I want to do a turbo, would you do a turbo?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, not the next car, but the car after is actually going to be supercharged. So the customer on that car has decided he wants to go supercharged with it. So yeah,
what's that going to be in terms of performance figures then?
We think about 400, maybe a little bit more.
So is that a 3?
So it'll be a 3.6.
3.6.
Yeah, but with a supercharger. So that'll be good fun.
It's quite fun,
I think. But yeah, I mean, we're happy to do it. As with everything with our cars, we're open to talking about whatever somebody wants to do. I mean, obviously there are limits to what we can do, but if somebody really wants us to investigate something, we're more than happy to do that.
Yeah,
and if
someone said I want to do a
Targa
Targa or something.
Yeah, we will do. We offer Targas now. We haven't done a recreation Targa yet, but at the end of the day, it's still a 964. So yeah, we're more than happy to do that and chat to anybody about any project.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting because I didn't know anything about you guys before we got in contact. I had got in touch, said, can we do the podcast or something? And we ended up doing some photography. And yeah, like the first time I
very talented photographer as well, Sam.
Thank you very much. I hadn't seen your car in the flesh, and you see pictures and like some potentially shot like a bit wide or whatever. We were talking about this the other day of like, if you take a picture, or manufacturers seem to do this all the time, shoot really wide angle and close, and it just destroys all proportions of the car whatsoever. So you're like, I don't know what this looks like. But when your car turned up in the morning, I was like, yeah, looks good. Cool. Sweet.
Well, that's a relief, at least.
Until I've seen it, you don't know, do you?
Well, no, of course you don't. It's the thing is, seeing something in the flesh is always going to be different to seeing it in photographs. And I mean, thankfully the photographs you took were great, and it'll show a lot more people what the car looks like. But obviously always the best thing is to see it in the flesh and experience it and hear it.
Will there be an opportunity for people to see the cars at some point? Really.
It's one of those things, if a build's coming to an end, obviously we're more than happy for somebody to come down and obviously social distancing and everything.
Yeah. Very nicely social distancing.
Yes. So we're more than happy for people to come down and see the cars, and obviously they're customers' cars, so we can't just let every man and his dog come and drive them, but we're more than happy to take somebody out for a spin, or, if
someone's interested. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Has it been a bit of a struggle during this whole lockdown COVID-19 period?
Yeah, I think it's been a strange experience all over the world, hasn't it? I mean, we carried on working through the Corona shutdown because obviously you can't really work from home with building cars. And our biggest issues have been suppliers, which has slowed us down a bit, but we're still managing to keep going and do everything we need to do.
Yeah. It's not too much problem because you don't have loads of random people turning up every day.
Thankfully, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it's very difficult to find us, which is a major bonus.
It's very difficult.
As Sam found out this morning. So even if you know where you're going, you still can't find it.
Yeah, I had the address, couldn't find it. So,
which is a good thing because, as you say, you don't have random people just walking in or knocking on the door saying, "Can they come and see?" Everybody that comes to see us has to have an appointment anyway. So with or without Corona, so we can make it work.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of doing it so that people don't. I've always thought about having, a studio or doing some stuff that's sort of front facing where people can see it going in. And then I was like, no, I quite like my privacy. I like to have a meeting or whatever booked in. Great. Love seeing people hanging out, whatever. But just someone to randomly walk by and be like, hello.
Yeah.
I'm
not also, like that. Obviously, the cars have a significant value.
Totally.
We don't want...
And they're customers.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's nice to be a little bit off the beaten track.
Yeah, and I think once, obviously, this is only car number 2, so...
Yeah, so we're looking to move premises as well, because as you've seen, we're kind of bursting at the seams here.
Yeah, we're in for the video viewers, we're in the sort of workshop area at the moment, so it looks slightly rough and ready, but it is the workshop, so...
Yeah, exactly. So, we're looking to move premises relatively soon. Just waiting on planning permission and stuff. So, and then hopefully we can have be a little bit easier and be able to build more cars and have
more space and
more
stuff.
More space, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. No, it's cool. Right. Well, I normally wrap these up with 5 questions.
This is the scary bit.
Question number 1: do you have a most memorable driving trip or journey?
That's a good question. Do you know what? Probably actually either driving, I know it's a bit sad, but driving either our first recreation or second recreation, just because it's something we've achieved. And as you've seen by the other cars, you can only experience the car right at the end.
Yeah.
And to drive something and think, we did this, and to get out the car at the end and to look at it and just like, wow, this has all just come together. And it's just... Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the best job in the world. I'm doing my dream.
Yeah,
it's building beautiful cars. And just it's great. It doesn't matter how many ridiculous hours we do, and I love it. The whole team here just love what we do, and the passion goes through the cars, and just to see the smiles on people's faces. I mean, I remember when the first recreation was built. And the guy that came to look at his car for the first time and drive it for the first time, he walked into the building, and just the moment he saw the car, I watched him just to see his reaction, and he had the smile of a 5 or 6 year old boy. And it's like, that's why we do it. That's it exactly. It's worth all the hours to see that just little boy being happy. It's great. I love it.
It's really cool. I think I've had that from a few people that I've spoken to that sort of make cars, and they're like, the first time I got to go in my car or the car finished going to a customer or whatever, it's just like it's massive brilliant. Sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, completely. It's amazing.
Do you look at the cars because you're like, all the details, and is it difficult to at some point just be like, okay, it's done?
Yeah, completely. It's as I said earlier, we're always about continuing improvements every little bit, but you have to have a cutoff, and you have to be very disciplined in having that cutoff. I mean, I remember when I was at university, and there would be, you do an amazing drawing, and you think, oh yeah, but I could just improve it by doing this. I could just improve it. And you carry on working on it, and 2 hours later, you've completely destroyed it because you've overworked it, and it just now looks a mess. And you're like, bugger.
Yeah.
And this was before all the Photoshop stuff, so we were all doing it on paper. And so basically, you've got to screw it up into a ball and throw it away and start again.
Yeah,
and that's basically 12 hours of your life you'll never get back. So you very quickly learn that discipline to, okay, I can do these improvements, then walk away, stop. Any improvements we do for the next car, great, but stop, because you'll just ruin things.
Yeah, it's a great thing to have and go, because I've seen downstairs, you're working on the next evolution of the wing mirror or whatever, and it's it's a constant process, but you've got to pick that point.
Yes, completely.
I've totally found, like you said, with like Photoshop or something, you're editing, and you can get, if you end up on like a 6-hour session or something, that sounds way more hardcore than it actually is. You need to just stop and go away for 45 minutes and come back, because the end result is 10% too far.
Yes, yeah, completely. And you actually sometimes have to bring it back, don't you? But sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees, can you? And it's amazing, as you say, go off, for a quick walk or whatever it is, even make a cup of tea and come back just like, what have I done? Why did I do that? Okay, delete that layer. Yeah. Okay, that's better.
Yeah, totally. Okay, next question. 5-car garage. Oh, unlimited value. It's got to fit into your lifestyle-ish.
Oh, man, I hate questions like that.
I know, that's why it's a good question.
5-car garage.
I can give you some categories if that helps. Like your daily.
Okay, daily. It's got to be a 911.
Okay.
Just a bog standard. Then again, if let's go Turbo S.
Like a 992.
Yeah. Do you know what? For a daily, I'd probably go convertible as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't really like the 911 convertible, but if it's your daily driver, it matters.
I'm very much in this avenue of thought at the moment. I kind of hate 911 convertibles, but I kind of love convertibles, and I kind of love 911s.
Exactly. That's kind of why the Spiders, and I mean, heaven forbid, don't hate me for this, but I kind of like the Boxster.
I love the Boxster.
Because, I mean, the new Boxster, the latest shape, it's a beautiful looking car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to own one because, obviously everybody says, oh, it's not a proper 911, it's not a proper, but it works as a convertible, and the 911 doesn't quite work.
No, it's looked better over time. It looks less, that hump's disappeared a bit.
It's getting a bit,
But even now, still 992, it's still got a massive, thing on the back.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a convertible 911 turbo, 992 for your daily.
Yeah.
Cruise control, all of the great stuff.
Exactly. So what else would we need? So we need some kind of SUV, I guess. Not a Bentley Bentayga, because that's the most hideous car on the planet.
Yeah, even the facelifted version, which looks to me exactly the same.
Yeah, no, I just don't like
Everyone's like, oh my God, it looks so much better. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't look good.
No. To be honest with you, probably just something like, oh man. Do you know what I do actually like? And once again, I'm probably going to be hated for this, but never mind. The Lamborghini Urus.
Oh.
I kind of like it. It's got something about it. I know it's completely in your face, but I kind of like it. And I think it's one of those kind of, secret.
Yeah.
You shouldn't really tell anybody, maybe.
Phrase, yeah.
So probably not best to say it on a podcast.
That's all right. People won't judge you. They probably will judge you.
They probably will judge me.
Your guilty pleasure or whatever. That's the right phrase.
Yeah, guilty pleasure, exactly.
Okay, so you've got your SUV, you've got your turbo cab 999, whatever.
Yeah. Have to have one of our creations, obviously, as a sort of...
Okay, and if you were ordering one of your creations, what would it be? What colour? What spec options?
So colour-wise, it would have to be like a classic 70s colour. So,
sorry, can you just move your mic closer just because we've got this noise in the back?
Is that a bit better?
Yeah.
So probably it would have to be a classic sort of 70s 911 colour.
Which
so
one?
possibly something like Signal Orange or something like that. So nothing too in your face, but just nice enough to be a statement piece. Or even, an ivory white. It will be a difficult choice.
Does that harken back to the 930 turbo days?
No, because I've actually got a 911E that's ivory white, and it's just such a stunning classic colour.
Yeah.
So I think I'd go for the orange. I think just for a bit more sort of in your face,
a bit more colour.
Yeah, and
engine. Did you say engine?
Engine, I'd probably go for the 3.8 just because it's a great engine. I wouldn't be driving it like a race car. So for me, I mean, the 3.8 is the 4.8 is a great engine as well. It's a real revvy engine as well. But the 3.8 is, more than adequate.
It seemed like it just had a really good amount of power.
Yeah. It's just a nice drivable car. So I'd go for the 3.8. Definitely go for, if it has a sunroof delete on it.
Interior.
I'm looking at woven leathers for a current customer, and some of the things we've come up with for that work really, really well. So
I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the sort of green with the woven leather. So I think I'd probably go for that kind of effect. Yeah. So I'd probably have some elements of green, of the orange, so it matches the exterior, but not too in your face. I'd probably have quite a dark interior, quite a lot of black, but with the small accents of the orange, just to kind of lift it a bit, yeah. But I think if you have too much of the orange, I think it's going to be too distracting whilst you're driving. So quite a subtle interior. So black with the little accents of orange, I think.
So you've got 3 cars. Yeah. So other options people have done.
Aerial Atom.
Ooh.
Yeah, something like an Aerial Atom with the Civic Type R engine. I can't think what the actual model is.
I don't know what it's called.
No, no, but I think that would be a fun sort of throw around car.
I think it would be great, like around here.
Yeah. And go on then. What else?
So things people have done of like track race car type stuff. Classic, you've sort of got that. Obviously, there's like hypercars or iconic all times.
I guess McLaren F1 then.
It's a pretty standard one that comes in. But
I mean, it's
GTR.
No, I don't like the GTR. Ooh. Well, which GTR? The Nissan GTR?
No, sorry. McLaren F1 GTR.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. If you're offering.
Yeah, like for me, if I was going to have an F1, it would be one of the short tail GTRs.
Yes. Yeah.
With, like roadable.
Yeah.
Because that to me just looks the best.
I mean, they're awesome, aren't they? Absolutely awesome.
Yeah. Have you seen much about the Gordon Murray's sort of replacement, the T50?
No,
much about I haven't. It's worth looking up. I think it gets launched today or tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
This week anyway. And it's...
Yeah, I've been a bit under the radar for the last couple of months.
This build. It's worth Googling, but the summary is I think it's 980 kilos, 670 horsepower, V12, revs to 12 and a half, manual, 3 seats, luggage space. It's got the fan concept type aero stuff that you can turn on and turn off to have extra downforce. Just a lot of slightly mad stuff, but kind of sounds like it will be wicked fun to drive. Not just like, it's going to have 1,500 horsepower. It's like, so what? But under 1,000 kilos.
I'm guessing it's going to be quite a handful. Horsepower.
Probably.
Probably want to drive on a track before you drive it on the road.
I would, yes. Yeah. That is, I think, that's great advice for most people when they get within reason. You've got to be slightly sensible. Yeah. You get a new sports car, take it somewhere where you're allowed to sort of play with the limit a little bit.
Limits, yeah, definitely.
Rather than the number of people that seem to crash on the way back from the dealership.
Yeah,
especially
it's crazy,
if it's wet.
Isn't it? Yeah. It's not the time to really find out what your new car can do, is it? Yeah. In the wet on the way back from the dealership.
And I think a lot of people do a massive jump, don't they? They might have, sold a business or something, and they're like, I'm now going to buy the car.
Yeah.
Whether it's, a Ferrari or whatever. And they may not have had a rear wheel drive car before. And they go from not having a rear wheel drive car
to having a ridiculously
having a really powerful rear wheel drive car. And funnily enough,
it doesn't end well.
Comes unstuck. Right. Next question. If you could only drive one car for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It would have to be one of ours, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, our cars are made so you could use them as daily drivers. I don't think many of our customers will, because, as I say, most of them have a collection, and they're nice to drive and comfortable place to be, and it makes you feel special when you're in it. Yeah, why wouldn't you want it as your?
Yeah,
if you only had one car.
I'm for me, it's got to be a 911, and then it gets tricky of what 911 you go for, but yeah, 100%, you could totally. Well, there you go. Obviously, you're going to pick your car.
Yeah, I'd be a bit stupid not to, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think's undervalued? An undervalued car at the moment.
Oh, undervalued car? I thought if you were just going to say what's undervalued, time is undervalued.
I mean, that's a good topic anyway, but
undervalued car.
Whether from a design point of view or, it's a bit cheap when you think about what it might be in the future, or any of the above. I
can't think of anything off the top
Custom
of my...
911s by Theon Design.
Yeah, they should be... Yeah. No, I don't think our cars are undervalued by people that come and see them and get to experience and see, the attention to detail and the way they drive and everything. So I don't think that is undervalued. But with regards to another car that's undervalued, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Fair enough. That's all right.
Yeah, I've still got a bit of brain freeze from the last 2 months of
18-hour
16 to 18-hour days. Yeah, I'm maybe not on the best form.
Yeah, we're in the height of the final days of handover. Okay, exactly. Final question. What is the most interesting car to you at the moment? What are you Googling? What are you looking up? Whether recent, old, new, whatever.
I'm not the only car I've been concentrating on the last 2 months is our car.
Yeah, the green interior.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me definitely. And it goes back to the thing we were talking about earlier. Walking anywhere near our car at the moment, it's just the satisfaction and the great sense of achievement of that car. And every car we do is just, it's phenomenal. And at the moment, I haven't got time to look at anything else. So that's definitely.
No, and that's that's a good answer, because you're clearly still interested in it.
Oh, definitely,
You're heavily invested in always in the project. But and you get a lot out of it. So
yeah, definitely, it's a massively fulfilling experience. Taking something from a sketch all the way through to a finished car and it working as well as it does. There's no better for me. There's no better job or experience.
Cool. I think that's a great wrap up to the podcast.
Perfect.
Thanks very much for coming on.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, and listeners, go check out Theon Design. There'll be a bunch of my photos. Try and work out which one was shortly followed by being stopped by the police. It was worth it. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.